So I think the theme to think about is immediacy. I think that what we've seen with technology convergence over the last years is the need to meet consumers where they're at. And we need to allow people to shop how they want, where they want, and when they want. And what that means is that value exchange is becoming immediate and people want their money immediately. And so part of that, it means that we have to deploy infrastructure that can speak to this need around immediacy, which we've done in South Africa. So in line with the South African Reserve Bank requirements, we've deployed infrastructure in country that allowed for auth, settle, and clearing to actually happen on soil within South Africa. Now, not only does this meet the regulation, but it sets us up for a future evolution of the payments ecosystem that would allow us to get and service this theme around immediacy. And a very big first step in that was very early in October this year. We introduced, through working with the Payments Association of South Africa, an additional settlement window for transactions, which means that Mastercard merchants in South Africa now receive their money, 80% of them at least, receive their money on the same day. Now, that's the first step in starting to then build out those settlement windows and making sure that ultimately, from a broader payments ecosystem perspective, we get into real-time payments regardless of the rail that is being utilized. Yeah, I think what we need to recognize is that the South African economy or payments ecosystem landscape is almost two sides of the same coin. And the one side of the coin is a very well-established financial services industry, very mature banks that's been doing a good job and that's keeping up with the best of breed technologies. But the unfortunate thing is that the informal market requires the same access. And that access, it creates the fundamentals around which commerciality can be built out for smaller micro enterprises and allow them to not only access markets, but to then also access additional financial services, like credit, for example, that might not be afforded to them if there's no visibility around the transaction volumes that they do. So in South Africa, we've seen since 2021 an increase of around 600,000 odd point of sale devices. And we're set to close out the year somewhere around 2.3, 2.4 million locations. And it's that township economy and this new digitally native generation that's starting to come through and is very comfortable to facilitate and use digital payments infrastructure. Now, our job in that is to make sure that this growth that we've seen proliferates to all corners of the country, and that includes the broadest spectrum of the broader South African environment and citizenry. And that is where Gateway comes in. So Gateway creates that connection between the merchant outlet, whether it's online or whether it's bricks and mortar, and connected to the banks for the facilitation of value exchange and transactions within that space. And what we're very excited about is the partnerships that we've built within that environment to help deploy this infrastructure, which is also in line with the South African Reserve Bank's requirements in terms of building out a more broader digital payments infrastructure. Looking from Johannesburg to the rest of the continent, we're one market of 53 that's part of the Mastercard Africa division. And we need to recognize that there's a lot of borders on the continent. And we need to bridge those borders. And we need to find a way for people to exchange value across, these particular countries and be able to send money home in a good way. And for us, thinking through our deployment of Mastercard Move as an example, is the ability to allow our customers to provide these services to consumers that, want to send money home, want to have the ability to purchase goods and services from a cross-border perspective. And that's really how we're breaking down the barriers and the constraints to facilitate value exchange within that environment. It's been a phenomenal story. So I think this year we're set to exceed 130 billion odd rand in terms of online retail sales in the country, continuing a trend of year-on-year growth north of somewhere between 30 and 35% since 2020. What that points to is changing behavior in the broader consumer landscape. So this digitally native generation that I spoke about earlier is making their voices heard. And what we're starting to see is true omni-channel commerce taking place in South Africa. It would be remiss of me, though, not to recognize that the growth around online retail is also a function of the broader consumer market going for the convenience that entities like Shoprite provide through their Shoprite 6060 app, and also the Woolies Dash capabilities, and the great work that companies like Takealot have done that ensures the distribution capability is there to facilitate not just the processing of the transaction, but also the delivery of the goods. And what we're starting to see is that even outside of the tier one cities in the country, so outside of Johannesburg, Pretoria, Cape Town, and Durban, that coverage, that distribution capability is now there. And these platform businesses are in turn allowing the smaller entities that might not be located in the big city centers to also sell their goods into that environment. And that's creating a virtuous cycle. So we're very bullish on online retail in the country. We think it's going to grow phenomenally over the next couple of years. We don't see that slowing down.